Hello friends, welcome to Initiate Cycle Initiative. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Paytm issue. We all know that RBI imposed certain restrictions on Paytm. We will try to understand what are those restrictions. First, let's see video components. In this video components, we are going to see why it is in news. That means we will try to understand the context. Then I will explain what is the difference between the universal banks and the differentiated banks. Because now Paytm, which is a payment bank, it comes under the category of differentiated bank. Objectives of the payment bank and how banks activities they can be different compared to the universal bank, and what activities generally Paytm banks do. What are the RBI actions against Paytm and what does the RBI direction say? On what grounds RBI decided to take these directions. Then reasons, yes, that is what the things we are going to discuss. First we have to understand the Paytm is a payment bank. Now first try to understand the context. Reserve Bank of India, it issued directions which includes, this direction is barring, that means limiting Paytm payment bank from exercising their core services. Actually core services means the principal services for which that particular bank is established. Okay. So core services for universal bank may be different from the differentiated bank. Here RBI, it put restrictions on the Paytm payment bank core services such as accepting accounts, opening of new accounts as well as the wallet services. These restrictions are going to be like a kickstart from March 1st onwards, and of course customers whoever having the money within the Paytm, they are allowed to withdraw. That is not a big deal, but Paytm should not allow the opening of new accounts as well as Paytm should not take any kind of deposits into its accounts. That is more or less it is going to affect the complete business of the Paytm. Now tell me guys, who is the founder of the Paytm? Okay, who established the Paytm? Actually he is one of the most successful person related to startups in India. Note, now technically still Paytm is having the license with RBI, still it is having the payment bank after 1st March also, but their operations are restricted. So RBI is saying that this is the best interest of the customers. Let's see how it is it is going to serve the best interest of the customers. First, like I mentioned earlier, there are two different types of banks. Banks are two different types. One is universal banks. The other one is differentiated banks. Here you have to understand, universal banks, they provide services to every customers, they provide an umbrella of services. Their services are universal in nature. That means they provide services to individuals, companies and corporations, to everyone, and they offer a wide range of products as well, including mutual funds, taking deposits and all sort of activities. Whereas differentiated banks, their activities are limited. And they cater the needs of only specific groups. Only. Here, based on the investment required, that means paid up capital, based on what kind of services they are offering, based on how they are interacting with the customers, these differentiated banks can be further divided into two types. These differentiated banks can be further divided into two types. They are payment banks, and the other one are small finance banks. Okay, small finance banks. Here we are discussing about this Paytm issue. Paytm is belong to payment banks. Okay, of course if you would like to know further details difference between the payment banks and small banks, you can check further, but now this first you have to understand payment bank, that is related to this particular issue. Now let's see further information regarding this. First, what sort of actions taken by RBI? Actually RBI did not give any specific reason for these orders, but from circumstances we can understand, from last few years RBI is keeping on raising red flags related to Paytm. Okay, let's see. So RBI is more concerned regarding Paytm services, such as Paytm is not following the effective KYC compliance. That means it did not authorize their customers KYC in a proper manner. And RBI is saying that Paytm, it is exposing customers' data to data privacy risks are there. That means data privacy is compromised. Tell me students, in which case Supreme Court announced data privacy is one of the fundamental right. That means privacy, right to privacy is one of the fundamental right. Which case? Supreme Court is also saying that Paytm, they did not have enough barriers to protect information within the group. So it is again related to information protection. And RBI is also saying that one of the promoter in Paytm parent company, that promoter is a Chinese based company, and that promoter also, the Chinese based company also, they are able to access this information in the Paytm directly. So these are some of the red flags noticed by RBI. Now, so based on the current condition, based on the RBI circular, Paytm is banned from taking payments as well as offering almost all the services now they are unable to do, such as now Paytm cannot provide services such as wallet services, FASTags, National Common Mobility Card, etc. after February 29, and all the accounts will be terminated. Customers are allowed to withdraw their money. That is not a issue, but new accounts will not be activated. Next, differentiated banks versus universal banks. Like I mentioned earlier, universal bank caters the needs of everyone and they provide wide range of services, whereas the differentiated banks, they provide services and they target their services only to one particular segment. Best example, small finance banks and payment banks, they are the best example for differentiated banks in India. Actually, what is the main objective of these differentiated banks? To provide banking services to the unbanked regions. Rural areas or remote areas, they may not be profitable for these universal banks to set up their branches over there. Those untapped areas, they can be inclusive, more financially inclusive by providing the services from the small finance banks and payment banks. Okay, so this is our sort of a financial inclusion, we can say. Next, payment banks. Payment banks are established based on the recommendation of Nachiket More Committee, and they were set up by RBI in 2014. And these banks, they set up to operate on a smaller scale so that their credit risk is also very minimal. Because that as the bank's capitalization is increasing, its exposure to risk is also increased. Related to the bank's risk, there are certain norms are there. Those norms banks have to follow. Those norms are Basel norms. Now, objectives. Objectives of payment banks to advance financial inclusion. Financial inclusion, that means providing financial services to as many people as possible by offering banking and financial services to the unbanked and underbanked areas where universal banks are not ready to set up their branches. And it was set up. These payment banks were set up to help the migrant labor force, low income households, small entrepreneurs. They are going to be mostly benefited by these payment banks because the conditions needed to open an account or maintaining an account, they are more flexible compared to universal bank. Payment banks at the moment, there are 6 payment banks operating at the moment. They are Airtel Payment Bank, Indian Postal Payment Bank, Fino and Paytm Payment Bank, NSDL Payment Bank and Jio Payment Bank. These are the 6 payment banks operating in India. You know that related to 6, I can tell you some other information also. There are 6 classical languages in India. 6 classical languages in India and 6 fundamental rights. 6 fundamental rights according to Constitution. And there are 6 national parties are also there. 6 national parties also there. Tell me students, which national party is more or less completely related to Northeast? Okay, that party's majority of the operations are confined in Northeast. Which party that is? Features of the payment bank. They are differentiated and not universal banks. They operate on a smaller scale and the minimum paid up capital, required to establish these payment banks are 100 crores. And promoter contribution. Whoever establishing these payment banks, initially their share should be 40% at least for the first 5 years. Later, their share should be reduced and the rest of the share should be open up to the public investment. activities that can be performed by these payment banks, what kind of services they are allowed to do. They can accept deposit up to 2 lakhs per account. Previously it was used to be 1 lakh, but later this deposit limit got extended. And they are not allowed to lend directly, but they can sell loan products like so giving a loan product rather than directly operating account and giving loans. It can promote other third party loan products like Paytm and Bajaj Finance like that. They are permitted to make personal payments and receive cross border remittances like payment services mainly. And they can also issue the debit card, very very important. They can issue debit card, very very important. Okay, this one you have to remember. Now we'll see the MCQ question. Okay, MCQ question. Consider the following statement about the payment banks. Read these following 4 statements and pick the which statements are right. Correct. Next, main question. What is e-rupee? How would it affect the existing banking system in India? How do you think e-rupee will affect the banking system in India? Now, as we reach to the end of this video, in this particular video we discussed about what is the issue related to Paytm Bank and on what grounds RBI imposed certain restrictions. What are the different banks like Universal Bank and differentiated bank we discussed. What are the objectives of differentiated bank and how they can promote the financial inclusion. And so what are the technicalities related to payment bank and what should be the paid up capital like that. So and what are the exact services offered by the payment bank we discussed. So this is the detailed analysis regarding the RBI restrictions on the Paytm payment bank. I hope this video added some value addition to your preparation. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day. Jai Hind.